Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we're going to learn Tajweed with Jaish on Learn Islam with Jaish. And today we're going to learn Tajweed lesson 1. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let's start. Now lesson 1 is the Arabic alphabets. Now most of you should know the Arabic alphabets, so we won't go too much into detail.
ألف باء تاء ثاء جيم حاء خاء دال.
So first, let's practice into Dal. Read behind me. Alif.
ألف
Oh, don't say it when I say it. Say it when the person says it.
باء تاء
Tha.
ثاء
Jim.
جيم
Ha.
حاء
Kha.
خاء
Dal.
دال.
Now let's continue.
ذال راء زاء سين شين صاد ضاد طاء ظاء عين غين فاء قاف كاف لام ميم نون واو هاء همزة ياء ياء.
Okay, just to tell you, this
ياء
and this
ياء
are the exactly same thing. Just some people write it like this,
ياء
and some people write it
ياء.
like this.
ألف
Now, most of you should be familiar with this lesson, right? The Arabic alphabets. So let's go to lesson 2.
ألف
Now, lesson 2, we have to get familiar with all these letters. That what letter is what.
ألف
Now, this is Aleph.
لام ألف
Now, these are two letters combined. Lam and Aleph.
لام ألف باء ألف.
This is the exactly same thing, Ba and Aleph. But in the Quran, we read it as Ba. But we'll learn that a little later.
لام ألف
Now, the letters will be written like this in the Quran. So they'll be joined up together like this. So this is what we need to learn. We need to know that this...
باء لام باء.
We need to know that this is Ba, Lam, Ba, and not read it wrong.
كاف لام حاء باء كاف تاء تاء كاف ثاء.
Now you can recognize one thing, that when they join together, like in Kaf, Ta, Tha, they're not exactly the same as what we done in lesson 1. So they're not exactly the same. They're in different ways, which are the ways that we need to learn.
باء ياء باء ألف نون ألف ياء ألف ثاء جيم ثاء ثاء لام ياء تاء لام باء ياء لام تاء نون لام ياء تاء نون تاء.
Now, let me point out something. This
هاء
and
تاء.
this. These are two different ways of reading two different letters. This is Ta
تاء
and this is
هاء.
Ta, which look completely different because this is all, which look completely different from the regular Ha. So we need to get familiar that this is Ta
تاء
and
Ha.
this is Ha.
Hamza,
Now, one thing which I also need to point out, on these three letters,
Hamza, Hamza, Hamza.
on these three letters, we read it Hamza. Like this is how my mom explains that you see the letters underneath, the alif,
Hamza,
wow,
Hamza,
and ya.
Hamza.
Now, on top of them, there's a baby Hamza, which we should know.
Hamza,
There's this letter, baby, sitting on top of a letter. Now, Hamza is using this letter as a chair. Now, we're not going to read the letter underneath. That's why on this,
Hamza,
this,
Hamza,
and this,
Hamza.
we read it Hamza. And we don't read the letter underneath. So I hope this is clear to everyone.
Ta, Mim, Ta.
Now, I also hope that lesson number 2 is clear to everyone. Now, one more thing, which I forgot to explain, is in lesson number 1, there are some letters which we need to read differently. Now, most of the letters are pretty simple, but there are some which you have to do extra pronunciation. Like ba,
Ba,
it's pretty straightforward.
Mim,
But now, if you go to,
Dha, Ain.
it might be pretty hard to pronounce these. So let me point out. There are some heavy letters which you have to read with a heavy mouth. These are,
Kha,
now we don't pronounce kha the same as ba.
Ba,
Ba we pronounce lightly, but kha we pronounce with a full mouth.
Kha, Sad, Dad, Ta, Dha, Ghain, Qaf.
Now these are the heavy letters which we have to pronounce with a full mouth. Now, in part number 2 of learning Tajweed, I'm going to test you on the heavy letters, so you better memorize them. And then we'll learn more about the letters in the next lesson, like the Safiria letters. Oh yeah, the name of these letters, you can call them heavy letters or full mouth letters. But just remember that you have to pronounce them with a heavy accent. There are also some letters that we pronounce from the throat, like
Ha,
and.
Ha.
One more thing, last until we finish your lesson. Now, I need to tell you that there are some letters, they're called mutashabihat, but you don't need to know about that. They sound the same, but they're not the same. Like
Ha, Ha,
or.
Sin, Sad,
Now, they're both different. In Sin
Sin,
and
Sad.
Sad is a heavy letter, so we pronounce with a more heavier, while Sin we pronounce with a more lighter, like see. You know how in English we say, I see a bird. So like that, Sin. But Sad is different. It's more heavier. Now,
Ha, Ha.
the most common one, Ha and Ha, they are not the same. Even when I was small, I used to make the same mistake. I used to say ha, ha. But it's not. This one
Ha,
is ha. It comes from the bottom of your throat, from the deep lungs. Ha. And this one
Ha,
comes from the top, but it still comes from your throat. Ha. Now, this way helped me a lot. Ha.
Ha,
Ha, ha. In ha, we breathe in, and in
Ha.
ha, we do we breathe out. So you can remember those. I'm just telling you 2 mutashabihat, while the rest we'll do later. Now, I hope you learned a lot today, and we'll see you in part 2. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Learn Islam with Josh.